Thanks for tuning in today for our episode of Becky So Inspired, coming to you from Becky's Sewing Center in Tazewell, Tennessee. I'm Emily and this is Shaylin, and today we'll be going over the Brothers Scan and Cut, and we're currently using model CM350, and we're just going to be going over some functions and features available to you on the Scan and Cut. So quickly, I'm just going to zoom in just so you guys can get a really nice look at the screen, and we are going to be starting out in our settings. Okay, so here at the top, you can see that there are one of 8 pages, and of course you start off on page 1. At the very top, you have your language setting. Over to the side, you can select a different language if you want to use something other than English, but today we're going to stick with English. Underneath that, you have your unit measurement, which is just the difference between the empirical and the metric system. We'll be using the empirical. And then below that, you have your cut area. If you select the icon next to it, you can switch between a 12 by 12 and a 12 by 24 inch mat. When you have selected the one that you wish to use, just hit OK. Below that, you have your background, and it's just the difference between making your screen darker or lighter or turning it off, matter of personal preference. If you scroll down, you will see your cut speed, and we can leave ours set at 1. And then you have your cut pressure, which we currently have off. Then we have our draw speed set to 1 and our draw pressure set to 0. Leave your cut speed and your draw speed usually at 1 unless otherwise specified, and your cut pressure and your draw pressure will depend project to project as well. Now on page 3, we have auto shutdown. Ours is currently set to 1 hour. You can change that accordingly, and that is just the amount of time that your machine will stay on without you using it. Below that, we have our buzzer sound, which we currently have on. You can turn it off. All that is just the sound that your machine makes every time you touch a function button. Then below that, we have our seam allowance. If you like to sew, I would leave it at 1/4 of an inch because that will cut your fabric and give you a 1/4 inch seam allowance for sewing. Underneath that, we have our pattern interval, and usually leave that at 1 because that's how many times it's actually going to cut over your project. On page 4, we have opening screen, which we have left to on. Scanning and cutting position adjustment. You can, of course, adjust it, but we're going to leave that alone. And we also are going to leave alone our blade adjustment area and our fill additional line. Especially if you're a beginner, I wouldn't start playing with those until you get a little more experienced with the machine. On page 5, it just has the serial number of your machine, the current version that it is, and then just some machine information. Your network, if you touch the function next to it, you can see that you can actually scroll down and you can select a new area, and you can select whether or not you would like to connect to the Wi-Fi at different places or at your home. On page 7, you can hit register next to Scan and Cut Online, and it will actually show you that you can go and download Scan and Cut Canvas, which is a really nice thing to have because it's free software, and free software is the best software. So now we're going to go over onto page 8, and these are premium functions. This is for embossing, and this one does not currently come set with an embossing setting. You would actually have to get an upgrade, and that's actually what the kit activation is. If you purchase an upgrade, you would actually have to download it to your flash drive, then insert it into the machine, and then put the key code that they have in, and then you would turn it on. Okay, so now we're going to hit OK, and we're going to get out of our functions. Next, we're going to go into our patterns. Here in the patterns, you can see that there are these fun little shapes, and there's sayings and borders and fonts, and then actually some quilt squares. So we're going to start out in our shapes, and these are just 10 pages of them, different boxes, hearts, stars, just fun different little things to get you started so you don't have to buy cut files as soon as you buy your machine. Next, we have other shapes. These are more seasonal, and you actually have to click onto them to see what they're inside, and different ones are going to have different amounts, and you can just scroll around until you find something that you would like to use. And then we have our sayings, and these are actually words are actually what they are. So like if we hit this one that says girl at the top, it's actually going to say girl. And then in here it shows you where you can adjust different things about it, but we'll get into a little more of that later. Okay, so we're going to go back, and then we're going to go into our borders. Borders are really, really cool for cards. if you like to make your own cards, and there's 11 pages of these. Next we have fonts. There's 7 different fonts. And then we're going to go back and we're going to look at this, and these are actually our quilt squares. They're like a cut file for just if you like to do piecing. It's like having a free pattern built in. So it's really nice for the ladies that like to sew, because you can just cut out your fabrics and makes your life a little easier. And it actually has the setup laid out for you. Okay, so now we're going to go back into our fonts, and we're going to select one. And you can see over here at the bottom, you can switch between upper and lowercase. Then over to the far side, you can switch between your English letters, your European letters, and then your numbers and symbols. Okay, and we're actually going to type something out, just something quick and simple, just so you can see how it fits between switching from upper and lowercase and how you add a space in, and, you know, just actually what it would look like. So we're going to hit OK. And when you were done, you can actually see that you can resize it here, and then you can edit it more later. So we're just going to back out of this, and we're going to go back into what we were going into before. Okay, so I want you to see at the top that there is a test. It is always a good idea to add a test for any time you cut something out. It does not matter which shape you select. However, I do wish that you would select the square, the triangle, or the circle, just because it cuts it out all the way, and it's not just like a little shape. So if you select one of these, it would let you just go ahead and hit set, and it would add it to your area. And I recommend doing a test because that way you can just put your weeding tool into it, pull it out to make sure it cut out the way that you want it to. So now we're going to go back to home, and then we're going to go into our patterns again. So we're just going to go ahead and go to save data. I want you guys to see that you can load up a flash drive, and that this machine takes SVG and FCM files. So anything you have on a flash drive in those, you can install into your machine and cut out. You can also scan items and save them to your machine, and go ahead and hit the machine button. And these are just some of the ones that I've scanned and created my own cut files out of old coloring book pages and just things I've downloaded off the internet. Okay, so we're going to go back home, and we're just going to select something to cut out today. Okay, we're going to hit OK. And see, this is broken down into one of 3, so I would actually have to select each one individually. So we're going to select one of them, and then we're going to hit OK. And this is also going to have a little editing screen right here. So there is the rotate tool, which is the circle with the arrow, and I can rotate it 90, 10, or 1 degrees at a time. Okay, and then there is the mirror imaging tool, and if you lay your fabric or vinyl down upside down, it's a really good idea to go ahead and flip it. That way it's going to make a mirror image of it and sit it out correctly. And then there is this little etching tool over here to the far side, and it's just going to make everything have a nice little allowance around it. And then there is your fill feature over to the far right. Okay, so when you have that all good to go, you just hit set. And then here is our main editing screen. So up in the top left hand corner, we're going to select that, and you can see that there is a trash can file, and then there is a move file. So if you actually hit that, you can move it around with your arrows to get it exactly where you want it. And I want you to notice at the very tip top, there is an enlarging tool, which does exactly what it sounds like. It zooms in. When you're done with it, you can just hit OK. And then I want you to notice at the very top as well, over to the right, that that is an array tool. So if you had lettering of some sort, you could simply arrange it in the way that you wanted to either center it, put it all to the right, or put it all to the left. When you're done with this, just go ahead and hit OK. Now there is also a resizing tool right there. Okay, so you see right now it's going to size everything proportionally. Now right now it's grayed out. But down at the bottom, you see where it has a little arrow going up and down and a little arrow to the side, and there's a dash in between them. Normally, if I selected that, I could resize it and not make it proportional. So if I just wanted to make it taller, or if I just wanted to make it wider, I could. But this is not one of those cases. So when I'm done with that, I'm just going to hit OK. And then I'm going to hit OK again. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that test we were talking about earlier. And now I'm going to move my test down, and then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add a box around it. And now I want to take the box over top of everything. So now we need to go resize our box. We just want it to cover our area. When we have everything moved in place, I want you to notice that there are 3 red boxes. If you select the 3 red boxes and you select the item over to the right in the center, that makes everything a grouped file. And what that means is it all makes it one design. So we're going to hit OK. And now I want you to notice at the bottom that there are 2 icons that were grayed out earlier that no longer are. There is your grouping feature and your mitering feature. And when we weld things together, it all actually becomes one file. It cuts it all out as a same design, not individual designs being cut out together. So we don't want to weld them together. We just want to make sure that they are grouped. So when we're done, we're just going to hit OK. And then we are going to load in our mat. So your mat loads right here in the front. You just make sure everything is nice and even, and then you hit your load button. It's also your unload button. Now I want you to notice that there is a scanning button over here to the far side, and it will pop up a little thing right there just telling you that it's going to scan your mat area. So when you're ready, just go ahead and hit start. Okay, so we're going to go back. And then we're going to hit OK. And then we are going to hit cut or draw. And it's a matter of personal preference. If you wanted to draw this out, it comes with some pins where you can draw it out, and it's really cute for the insides or outsides of cards. And then we have our cut file, which if we hit cut, then we would hit start. And after we hit start, it would cut out our test. It would stop and give us a chance to pull out either the vinyl or the fabric that we're working with, and then it would pop up an option that would say quit cutting, or I would hit start again. If I pulled it out and it worked all the way through the way I wanted it to, I would just hit start again. And if it didn't, I would hit quit cutting. I would move my test into a new position, and then I would try it out one more time until I got it just so. Now I want to focus our attention on our actual cutting blade, which is right here. You just simply lift the lever up to pull it out. Then you pull it out, and I want you to notice that I have mine set to about 1.5, and that was just where the last project I was working at. You can take it all the way up to 12, and all the way down to 1. And just depending on what material you're working with at the time is going to completely dictate. Always start with lower numbers because it's not going to take much fabric to cut out a little test, but we don't want to cut through and completely ruin our mat. So when you have it set to where you feel like you're comfortable, you are just going to take it back over, you're going to slide it back into place and close the lever. Okay, and when everything is said and done, that is the basic general overview of the Brother 350 Scan and Cut. So, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Don't forget to subscribe and like our video. Let us know if there is anything else you would like to see in the comments below. Also, you can follow us on Facebook at Becky's Sewing Center and on Instagram at Becky's Sewing Center. And stay so inspired. Thank you.